Welcome back to the FemStrong podcast, folks. I'm your host, Stacey Riccolo. If you're new here, I'm a perinatal exercise coach. I help driven, active women move in ways that they love throughout pregnancy and return to movement that they love postpartum without fear. If you're looking to get involved more with FemStrong, you can check it out at www.femstrong.co. Here on the podcast, I interview experts in the field of all things perinatal, whether that's preconception, conception, postpartum, during pregnancy. We're getting into topics that will hopefully make your life better and easier. So today we bring on Justin Nault, who is the owner of Clovis Health. A few months ago when I met Justin, he casually mentioned that couples who have worked with him, who've had trouble conceiving in the past, even gone through failed rounds of IVF, were able to conceive naturally after working with him through his nutrition and health coaching program. And he just kind of casually mentioned it. And I was like, hold up, run that back. I need to know more about this. So I asked him to come on the podcast so we could get into what's going on here, what he does, and why this is happening, what we're getting wrong about health, what health really means, how we actually influence our behaviors, our habits, and our health in ways that produce outcomes that truly better our lives. I'm not going to give you guys too much. We're just going to dive right into it because Justin has great things to say. Stoked for you guys to hear this interview. It is truly one of my favorite episodes yet. So without further ado, here's the show. Pew, 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 pew. Welcome to the FemStrong podcast, Justin.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, thanks so much for being here. Let's dive right into it. Can we start with your story? What got you into nutrition things? You say that you never set out to be a nutrition guy and you were a musician for a long time. So can you tell me a bit about what brought you here?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, 10 years ago, if you would have told me I'd be teaching the world nutrition, I would have said you were out of your mind. At that time, I was probably drunk 6 nights a week. So I definitely would have told you were out of your mind. Yeah. I mean, there's my personal journey, which really is just one of body dysmorphia, which I think is true for a lot of people. Like I grew up I played hockey for 10 years. I started when I was like 3 years old. And then just because I was born in 86 and I lived in the land of ultra processed junk, like my diet was Doritos and Cinnamon Toast Crunch and Coca-Cola, So by the time I went into high school, I was 5'2" and almost 200 pounds. So, 40 pounds more than I am now and 6 inches shorter than I am now. So I was definitely what was called a fat kid back then, the politically incorrect term. And I grew up watching Arnold Schwarzenegger and Sylvester Stallone movies. So I just had like tremendous body dysmorphia. And then when I was 15, my dad let me start lifting weights. So I started lifting weights 2 hours a day, 6 days a week, and just like trying to punish myself to get my body to look the way I wanted it to look. And it worked. I lost a lot of weight. I was running on a treadmill every night and all this stuff. But that body dysmorphia followed me into my 20s and I became a professional musician. So I went to Berklee College of Music in Boston, and then I moved down to Nashville. I had a degree in songwriting. So I started doing writing songs and had music in TV shows and movies, things like that. I had a reality TV show that I landed on ABC by the time I was 25. I was playing 300 shows a year. So basically, you take a body dysmorphic little kid and put him in front of stage lights every single night for his whole life, right? So it was like in my 20s, I just punished myself. I was training 6 days a week, 2 hours a day, just like I was when I was a teenager. Just like no matter what, I was training as hard as possible. And I could never get my body to look the way that I wanted it to look. I was always like in the low 20s really for body fat percentage. We're like, I'm 38 now. I probably sit at 13% body fat. I just like couldn't figure it out. I was like, I'm working harder than anyone I have ever seen. I would work out till I vomited and I couldn't get my body to look the way I wanted it to look. And I mean, like, I'm a purple belt in jiu-jitsu. I was a boxer. I was deadlifting 450 pounds. Like I was doing
So you're not
CrossFit.
doing things.
Exactly. I was like, no matter what, I'm just like chubby. I hated it. And in my late 20s, I found the paleo diet, and that changed everything. I literally Google searched what is the perfect human diet and found a film called In Search of the Perfect Human Diet by CJ Hunt.
Okay.
CJ Hunt is now a good friend of mine, which is amazing. I mean, it completely changed my life. And around that time, I was doing my first paleo reset and I was effortlessly dropping body fat. And right around that time, my niece, Savannah, was born. She was born terminally disabled. So she was having over 300 seizures a day. Within the first 7 days of life, she was put into the pediatric ICU. She was given less than 3 years to live. And this was like my first introduction to the horrors of mainstream medicine, which is really what got me to where I am today, doing the work that I do.
Mhm.
And it was like, they prescribed my brother and his then wife antidepressants immediately. They're like, your child is going to die. They ended up installing a G tube, which is a feeding tube in her stomach because she couldn't eat or drink.
Mhm.
And that was my first introduction to the ketogenic diet. So
Mhm.
what we know as the trendy keto diet is actually a medical diet called the ketogenic diet. And it is used to suppress seizures in infants, toddlers, and even teenagers. There's an
Mhm.
entire organization called the Charlie Foundation. And all they do is help families manage ketogenic diets to suppress epileptic seizures in their children.
Interesting.
Yeah. So unfortunately, Savannah was not epileptic,
Mm.
but they still try it. They try it with all the babies. So she's in
Right.
this pediatric ICU. They're putting a baby formula in her G tube called KetoCal. It's owned by Danone, a big food company, for-profit food company. And I was a nutritional therapist at the time. I was so obsessed with paleo that I became a nutritional therapist in my spare time just
Mhm.
to treat myself, right?
Yeah.
And so I knew just enough to be annoying to doctors.
Yeah. Can we pause for a second and like talk about what that means, being a nutritional therapist?
Yeah. So the primary thing nutritional therapists do is we study epigenetics. So studying how lifestyle interventions impact epigenetics and thus change the expression of your genes, right? That's what I was really interested in because my whole life I thought, well, I must just be genetically fat. Like I
Yeah.
was a fat kid growing up and I must just like hold more body fat. But like no one in my family is obese. So I was like, I don't think that this is correct. Like my mom
Right.
she's 4'10". She's like super short. So when she holds body fat, it's like she always gets annoyed by it because 1 pound looks like a lot on her frame.
Yeah.
So, but I'm still looking around. I'm just like, no one in my family is obese. My uncles, my cousins, nobody. I'm like, this can't just be a genetic thing. And I became
Right. This
obsessed.
can't just be like the natural state of my body in a healthy state.
Exactly.
Yeah.
100%. So
Hmm.
that really became my mission. And once I did my first paleo reset, I think I dropped like 6% body fat in 30 days or something crazy. I was like, my body was like melting before my eyes.
Yeah.
And then I was angry because I was like, how did no one tell me about this? I have been killing myself with physical fitness,
Right.
like truly damaging my body with the
Yeah.
length I was going to.
Hmm. And how was the paleo reset different from what you were doing before in terms of your nutrition?
Yeah, well, what I was doing before was training all the people that you see online, bodybuilders, right? I was training
Hmm.
I was hiring personal trainers, and it was like brown rice and tilapia and steamed broccoli, but like then at night I was still drinking alcohol, and I would like if I was short on time, I'd go get a Subway sandwich on whole grain bread and get the baked Lay's potato chips instead of the normal potato chips, right? Like I was
Right.
still making conscious decisions that I thought were healthy,
Hmm.
but it
Absolutely.
was all within the framework of the food pyramid.
Hmm.
So it was not only was it very high carb, I'm actually a fan now. I'm a very big fan of very high carbohydrate diets, but the very high carbohydrate diets from the food pyramid is 11 servings of grains per day, you know?
Hmm. Yeah.
So I was operating that framework or where I was conscious of my nutrition, but I really didn't understand what I now teach. The entirety of my brand is built on food versus poison. What is food and what is poison? Food is only good for you in any amount. Poison is only bad for you in any amount, which is why I push so hard against calories in, calories out, because it's nonsensical when you add poison into food. When you combine the two, calories don't make sense.
Hmm.
So that's really what I was having these huge aha moments around
Yeah,
what
so you
exactly
were your decisions that you were making, you were working to make healthy decisions within the healthy framework that you, the quote healthy framework
yes,
that you had at the time. And then
exactly.
when you discovered paleo, it changed that framework for you.
Yep.
So your maybe your mental effort didn't have to increase that much because you were just shifting what choices you were making. It wasn't that you weren't being disciplined and dedicated before. You were
Yes.
just in the wrong perhaps direction. So what then did the choices start to turn to, just kind of generally speaking, we don't have to get too deep into it,
Sure.
but what was different with the paleo?
Yeah, I mean, paleo in a nutshell is basically like if the whole concept is like they call it the caveman diet. They're like if cavemen had access to it, then you eat it. So basically,
Mm-hmm.
like if a food exists in nature in its whole food form, you eat it. Which is why strict paleo doesn't include dairy, doesn't include things like white rice, right? They're pretty strict on what you can take in. And I went really strict when I first learned about paleo.
Yeah.
So it was really more about what I wasn't eating. Because when I first went paleo, it was such a shock of like, wait a minute, that I was eating like 4 or 5 bananas a day and like a whole bag of cashews. Like I didn't have an understanding of like the macronutrient breakdown of cashews or anything like that.
Yeah.
I was like, well, this is paleo. I'm just going to eat it. So it was
Mm-hmm.
actually more around like I wasn't consuming seed oils. I wasn't consuming artificial flavorings and sweeteners and food dyes. I cut out all grains. There was no bread, no pasta, no pizza, like none of that stuff. I stopped
Yeah.
drinking beer, right? So I just like removed so many things that are metabolic toxins, like known metabolic toxins, which is why, you know, I'm part of this whole MAHA movement now, because it's now coming to the forefront of like, no, a lot of our food supply, most of our food supply is actual metabolic toxins. So we can play the calories in, calories out game all day, but if we're talking about food or poison, the calorie game becomes very different.
Right. And we've been playing calories in, calories out for a handful of decades now, and we have good data about what the result is.
Exactly. 100%.
This
If you
found.
look out at society today, it is one of the biggest failed experiments, arguably the biggest failed experiment in the history of the world in terms of
Mm-hmm.
health and wellness. I mean, Western society, 90% of people have metabolic dysfunction. 75% of people are overweight and obese. There are actually more obese people in America than overweight people.
That's fascinating.
Yeah, 40% of the population is at least 30 pounds overweight, which is clinical obesity.
Mm-hmm. And those are the people that you work with a lot, that you help a lot.
Yep.
Beautiful.
Yeah, basically, I'm the guy that people come to when nothing else has worked.
Mm-hmm. Beautiful. All right. And I want to get more into that, but let's get back on track to your how you got here story.
Sure.
So you were saying that you were looking at what was in the G-tube. Is it G-tube?
G-tube, yep.
The G-tube formula for your niece.
Yeah.
And you were down your rabbit hole of nutrition at the time. So you were looking at it with a keen eye.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Please continue.
Yeah. So all these things that I just mentioned that I was no longer consuming, I just checked the ingredients list on KetoCal. So again, this is a baby formula being put directly into the stomach of a dying infant who's weeks old and having 300 seizures a day.
Yeah.
And they are putting her on a ketogenic diet. Now, in the medical community, they just know that keto means high fat, low carb. They don't pay attention to quality. So the high fat, this formula was definitely high fat, and it was hydrogenated vegetable oils. It was seed oils, soybean oil, sunflower oil. There's cornstarch in there. Like, it was crazy. And I'm like, okay, that's a known metabolic toxin. And then from there, they try to do what food companies do, which is like fortify certain foods. So they add a bunch of vitamins and minerals, but these are synthetic vitamins and minerals. For instance, they're going to use folic acid. They're not going to use methyl tetrahydrofolate, which is like the active form, right? So I'm like, okay, they're just feeding her a bunch of toxic seed oils and a bunch of synthetic vitamins and minerals that her body doesn't know how to use. This is poison. And I brought that to the attention of a Vanderbilt neurologist in Nashville. And he looked at the bottle and he looked at me and he goes, I never thought to check that. And I could see, like, this guy was a totally good human being. He was trying to help us, you know? Like, I think nearly all healthcare professionals are like trying to help people. That's why they get into it. It's just their education that has led them astray. So that was really, you know, what I call the cliche red pill moment, where I was like, oh, nobody's coming to save us. Like, there are no adults in the room here. This is madness. And that led to me. I made a paleo, used paleo superfoods and made a baby formula in my kitchen. We cleared with the Vanderbilt neurologist to give that formula to Savannah in her G-tube. And then that led to me, I had read the 4 Hour Work Week, and I turned that superfood formula. I hired a research and development team, food and beverage consulting company, and turned it into a shelf-stable superfood protein powder, which was called the Perfect Paleo Powder at the time. And I started selling it to CrossFit gyms. Mm-hmm. And then that led to selling on Amazon. And then that led to a lot of people asking me a lot of questions about nutrition. And I just started doing Facebook Lives on my personal page and just teaching people what I had learned through all these rabbit holes. And I realized they're still on my podcast. They're called Ask Me Anythings, just AMAs. And within the first few AMAs, I was like, oh, it became very clear to me that what I thought was common knowledge was not common knowledge. People were very confused about nutrition, the same way I had been years before.
Absolutely. And many people still are. Absolutely.
For sure. Yeah. So I did that AMA was weekly. It turned into 115 AMAs straight in a private Facebook group. And I started doing custom nutrition plans for people and selling the superfood powder and on. And now it's, near 1 million people across my social media channels.
Yeah. And now here you are.
Here we are. Yeah.
Great. So something that you mentioned when we first talked was that in your business, which is called Clovis, you have what you guys call Clovis babies.
Yeah.
and that a lot of the people that you've worked with have tried to conceive
Mm-hmm.
prior to working with you, perhaps gone through rounds of IVF,
Mm-hmm.
and then after working with you, they have then conceived naturally without IVF.
Mm-hmm.
And thusly, you call these babies Clovis babies,
Yeah. Yeah.
which I think is so incredible and so cool. I want to dig into that a little bit. What do you think? What do you think some of the biggest lies are that we're running with when it comes to fertility?
Yeah, I mean, some of the biggest lies we're running with in fertility are the same things we're running with in all of nutrition as a whole, and the space of
Mm-hmm.
biohacking and longevity and like health and wellness influencers and all this stuff, right? Is like the entire population is malnourished. That's where we are, 100%. And biohackers not excluded from that, right? Like I have this term, some people love it, some people hate it, but I say on social media, we are drowning in a sea of infertile six packs.
Oh, that was one of my favorite things that you said on the podcast that I listened to that you did. And I keep thinking about that when I see people who are just absolutely shredded. That
Mhm.
runs through my mind of like, we are running through a world of infertile six packs. The picture that we have in our mind of health and peak performance
Mhm.
is paired currently with infertility.
Yeah.
Our picture of health is wrong.
100%. And I
Yeah.
mean, we talk about East Austin Jiu-Jitsu and stuff. Like, I'm a purple belt in Jiu-Jitsu. I've been in that world for a long time. I started doing nutrition, sports nutrition for UFC fighters, helping them do their weight cuts and stuff.
Yeah.
And I actually specialized in working with female fighters and making sure they didn't get amenorrhea or losing their cycle because of drastic weight cuts. Like UFC fighters, or MMA fighters, I should say, gymnasts, women very regularly lose their periods, right? So
Mm-hmm.
I was
Oh,
kind of
absolutely.
specializing. Yeah, I was really specializing in that. And that's when, I have been around so many guys that are on social media that are literally selling health and wellness programs that are like 8% body fat. They're completely bald because men have not yet realized that male pattern baldness is hypothyroid. No one pays attention to that. They're absolutely shredded and literally have erectile dysfunction and infertility.
Mm-hmm.
So the one primary thing that human biology is designed to do is reproduce. That is the only thing that we should measure health and wellness by, or at least it should be the primary marker. If the
Mm-hmm.
human biology, the human meat suit, cannot reproduce, fundamentally, it is not a healthy human being. It's not
Mm-hmm.
achieved optimal metabolic health and wellness.
Right, because that
So,
is how we propagate life. That is how we continue our species on.
exactly.
I agree. It seems like a pretty reasonable marker.
Yeah. Well, and you have, we're here in Austin, and I normally wouldn't name any names, but he's been very public about this. But like a great example of this is like Aubrey Marcus
Mm-hmm.
from On It is now
Yeah,
sharing his journey of getting back to a place where he is fertile. And the
incredible.
reason
And how beautiful that he is sharing it. I love that.
Totally, totally.
Yeah.
And the reason for that is because Aubrey's been injecting and slathering on testosterone since he was 22 years old.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, yes, he's on magazine covers and he's shredded and he has a six pack and he looks fantastic with his shirt off. And
Mm-hmm.
now he's a little later in life. I think he's in his early 40s now and wanting to have a child and
Yeah.
is infertile because of all the things he did to himself in the name of aesthetics. Right. So this is really, I talked about this in the Maha podcast. We have like one end of the spectrum is obesity, or let's say morbid obesity, people that are 100 plus pounds overweight. This is a very unnatural human body.
Mm-hmm.
And they're taking advice from the other end of the spectrum, which is a very unnatural body, right? If you go back in time and look at like bodybuilding competitions from the 1940s, like these guys, the way that they look, they have dad bods. What we call dad bods now, they couldn't sell a $17 ebook on fitness today in Instagram's culture, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like you have to look like an absolute comic book character to be taken seriously in health and wellness.
Mm-hmm.
Fortunately, if you actually know your shit, you can get around that like I did. I mean, yes, there are pictures of me shirtless online, and yes, I have abs, sure. But that's not what the brand is built around. You know what
Right.
I mean? And I had to learn that for myself. When I was 9% body fat, my testosterone was 250. I'm 13% body fat and 38 years old, and I don't supplement testosterone, and my testosterone's 850, and I feel amazing. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like understanding those levers and how to pull them. The Clovis babies thing, really what I did mostly. And what's interesting is I didn't name Clovis babies. That's the women did. They were like, I have a Clovis baby. And I was like,
Oh.
I could literally start crying, like thinking about that. Cause they would send me pictures of their pregnant bellies. It'd be like them standing with their husband and like a picture of their pregnant belly. And they're like, Clovis baby, it was
Oh,
amazing.
that is amazing.
And the big thing, so long story back to your question, the big thing people are missing, there is not an adult alive that needs less than 2,000 calories a day, period.
Yeah.
Right? It's like I would never feed a woman who's trying to conceive. I would never feed her less than 2,500 calories a day. Minimum. If she's 5 feet tall, I might give her 2,200 calories a day and a whole lot of carbohydrates. Right? So what has happened, and I'm sure you know this from the land of fitness, maleness in the patriarchy, and I was saying this before we started recording, this is the hill that I will die on, right? Is maleness is seen as better than in our society. That is the value, right? When birth control came out, all these things, women went to the workforce. It actually was an equality. We weren't honoring women for their feminine magic. We were saying the more you can behave like men, the more we will value you, right? Mm-hmm. And I see the same in fitness, in the fitness world. There are women that have amenorrhea that are destroying their ability to reproduce because they want to have six-pack abs, they want the heavy deadlift, they want whatever, like, and that's great. If you want that, that's amazing. Mm-hmm. But just know you're making a choice that is anti-metabolic health and wellness, which is the same reason why if you went to school and studied art history, let's say, you are never going to find throughout all of history a painting of a woman who has a 12-pack. It's not a thing, right? It's like this, that's not the aesthetic that shows fertility. It's not the metabolic health and wellness that leads to fertility, right? So if you want to have six-pack abs and you want to be like heavily involved in fitness and all those things, that's incredible. You just have to understand that you're making a choice. So the number one thing that people are getting wrong with fertility is they are not eating nearly enough food, not even close. I have women coming to me that are like, I've been struggling to have a baby. I have 3 failed rounds of IVF. And then we track their food and they're eating 1,200 calories a day.
And your body feels so unsafe if you're in that prolonged caloric deficit. And if your body doesn't feel safe, it can't reproduce.
That's exactly it. That's the way I've described it in the past is like what you're doing. The human body is a supercomputer. And if you think about your MacBook, like I'm looking at a MacBook right now, my Mac operating system is going to work perfectly as long as it is fed code that is perfect. If I start injecting malware and viruses in that code, the computer is going to start to malfunction. It's the same with the human body. But what ends up happening is like when the computer starts to malfunction, we bring a technician in and the tech is like, let's replace the keyboard. Let's replace the screen. Let's give it a new motherboard. Let's cut it up and tear it apart. And I'm like, yeah, but there's viruses and malware being injected 3 times a day, every day. Like mealtime for humans, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the
battery's running out because we keep unplugging it and letting it run out of battery, and then let it be dead for 2 hours, and then plug it back in, and then let it charge to 12%, and then run it into the ground.
100%. And then you have the computer technicians that's like, no, the viruses and malware doesn't matter. That's mainstream medicine today. Mm-hmm. So we have these women that are like, I'm taking a prenatal vitamin, and I'm taking this, and I'm taking that, and I'm getting IV therapy, and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, you understand fundamentally your mitochondria needs substrate to produce ATP, which is the energy currency of the human body. If you do not have enough ATP, you will be in a chronic stress state. You are basically signaling the input coming into your supercomputer is there is famine in the environment. We don't even have enough food for our organs to function properly. Why would we bring another mouth to feed into the world? And that is the core problem of the infertility epidemic today. So it's either people are not eating enough calories, period, to get their micronutrients, or you may have someone who's eating 3,000 calories a day of fast food and Doritos, and they are still not getting enough nutrients. Like the fertility issues, we can solve the infertility crisis that is global at this point just by educating people on nutrient-dense whole foods and making sure that they're getting enough total calories.
Mm-hmm. Beautiful. I don't even have anything to say.
It's pretty simple, right? And this is the thing. I'm like, and I always say this, like we were talking earlier about like my credentials, right? I always get asked about, one of the first things you get asked about when you speak the way that I do in public is like, what are your credentials?
Yeah.
And I always say 2 things. Like, one, my credentials are the Clovis tattoos that people have on their skin, right? When you start transforming lives in a way where people literally tattoo your brand on them, then you're doing something right.
Where do they put them? Where's the most common place that they put this tattoo?
I can tell you my favorite one is there's a Live Clovis tattoo on the forearm of this woman. And when she described it to me, it was one of those things where she like sent me a picture of it and I was like, wait a minute, what is happening? And it just said Live Clovis.
Yeah.
And she was like, this way, anytime I reach for food or a drink, or I reach out to give someone a hug, I
Oh,
see Live Clovis. And I was like, oh my God.
so you're a cult leader.
Yes, exactly. Right. I am now
You're a cult
Osho.
leader, and you have the equivalent of WWJD bracelets, but people are tattooing it onto their bodies.
I had a client make a WWJD t-shirt. That
Wow.
was what
As I
was
said it, I
going to
realized
do.
that it
Yep.
works because your name's Justin.
Yep.
Yeah. Does that
I
feel a
mean,
little sacrilegious to you? Does that make you
uh,
uncomfortable?
I mean, if we take a very irreverent kind of fun, humorous, comical approach to it, I think that it's adorable. Like I really love the way that my community shows up. Like there's the Facebook group now has probably close to 12,000 people. And that's
Yeah.
where like my Clovis, I call them Clovis OGs. That's where they live.
Oh, that's
And
fun.
they're just, yeah, they're the
12,000
best.
OGs.
The what?
12,000 OGs.
Yes, exactly. Right.
Yeah.
It's great.
Just
And
a
I mean,
few.
yeah. And I
Yeah.
think that like, one of my favorite philosophers of all time, probably my favorite philosopher of all time is Alan Watts. And he talks a lot about gurus, this idea of gurus, right? And we live in Austin. You throw a stone, you'll hit a freaking guru.
Oh, yeah.
But I think that a lot of people deeply misunderstand things like enlightenment or like Zazen, Buddhism, enlightenment, how you want to look at enlightenment. And the great Alan Watts says gurus are tricksters. The real gurus know that they are tricksters. There is no guru to be had. But I also know that people are coming to me with a belief in the guru.
Mm-hmm.
So I have to give them exactly what they are looking for, right?
Yeah.
So you have someone that shows up to a Zazen Buddhist monastery, right, in India or something, and they're like, I want to live in your establishment. Can I live here? And the guy's like, why? I have nothing to teach you.
Yeah.
I'm like, no, but I really want to live here. I mean, okay, there's 60 other dummies that are living here. Look, they're living here too. Like, come in, like you got to sweep the floors and you got to cook and you got to, clean the kitchen, but you can stay here. Cool. Yes, master. And please lead me. What should I do? I don't know. Just like sit and think for 8 hours a day. Just sit there, do it. Okay. All right. Well, can you hold me accountable? I really need accountability. So I meditate. Okay. Well, listen, if you insist, anytime you stop meditating, I'm going to hit you with a stick and you meditate again. Okay, cool. And the person lives in this monastery for 30 years. And then bang, they become enlightened and they look at the master and they're like, oh my God, it was me this whole time. You never had anything to
Me this
teach
whole
me.
time. Yeah.
I'm like, I told you day one, I never had anything to teach you, you dummy.
Yep. It's so true.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's interesting. I love that. Well, now I need to look into Alan Watts. So.
Oh, he's incredible. But yeah, I mean, that's really the thing. Like the I laugh because I'm like, my bachelor's degree is in songwriting. And for some reason, I am the guy. People have spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on concierge medicine, functional medicine, conventional medicine, IVF treatments. They come to me and I'm like, hey, yeah, don't eat poison and eat like twice as much food as you're currently eating.
Mm-hmm.
Solves nearly all problems I've ever come up against. Autoimmune conditions, diabetes, obesity, infertility. We fix it.
Mm-hmm.
Why am I the guy? I don't know. That's the way the universe decided it would be.
Yeah. So let's circle back to, because probably our listeners are like, well, what are his qualifications then? So you said your degree's in music.
Yeah, that's my only bachelor's degree is in songwriting.
Yeah. But you also are nutritional therapy certified.
Yep, certified nutritional therapist, certified specialist in sports nutrition, and certified specialist in fitness nutrition.
Beautiful. Cool. Anything else that we should know about your background for our listeners?
What I think is important with certifications is I call it the game of certifications. So
Agreed.
both of my fitness and sports nutrition certifications are from ISSA. And I went to ISSA, and when I got my second certification from them, I was like, how fast can I get this done? And they were like, well, if you do it really fast, you can, I think they told me 12 months. And I was like, cool. And I crash coursed it in 6 weeks and I aced everything. And then I reached out to the CEO of the entire company, the dean, I guess you would call it. And I said, hey, just so you know, I answered nearly every question wrong according to the most up-to-date science. And I aced your course. And you should know this. Your textbooks are awful. And in response, he gave me a lifetime scholarship to anything I ever want to do at ISSI. I just presented him with a ton of it. I was like, hey, just so you know, you should stop teaching this to people. And I don't know if he was just like, oh, this guy seems like he's going to be a pain in the ass, but like, that was how it went down. So I'm like, people ask
Did it change anything?
No, not that I know of.
Yeah.
But that's the game of credentials, right? It's like, I always compare it to like Herbalife. You have someone's like, hey, come to my house on Friday and we're having a get together. And then I'm going to show you a video about the science behind the products that I sell. And then you have this opportunity. You can buy Herbalife and you can sell Herbalife too. That model of MLM, like pyramid scheme marketing, was created by pharmaceutical companies. Big Pharma created that. What they did was they bought a bunch of real estate and they created textbooks that train people who get certifications that sell their products. So we live in a world where the people with the highest medical credentials are actually glorified salespeople.
Mm-hmm.
And that's very hard for their ego to hear. And it gets me a lot of hate online. They're angry because they've dedicated their life to mainstream medicine and getting their credentials or whatever. I fundamentally don't believe in the perceived authority that they think granted them their credentials. So the 3 letters at the end of their name mean absolutely nothing to me.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm quite unapologetic for that. I think that they're great people, and I think they're super sharp and super intelligent. And that amount, like that amount of intelligence that they have, if they just open their eyes a little bit and go down a few rabbit holes. Like I've sent several PhDs down the rabbit hole. There's a book called Medical Nemesis by Ivan Illich, and it is amazing. And that's really one of the opening rabbit holes that I give people. And it's very rare that I have someone who is intelligent enough to be an MD or a PhD that goes down that rabbit hole and is not like, holy shit, how was I not taught any of this? And it's just the history of allopathic medicine, where it comes from.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that we're seeing, at least I'm optimistic that we're seeing an enlightenment in this facet of society right now. I think that we're seeing enough failure of the current model that there's a lot of individuals, at least that I encounter in the work that I do, and I have a skewed perception because of the narrow range of what I see in my day to day. But I feel very optimistic that we're really starting to step forward into solving this problem. And it's not going to be an easy solve, but I think this is the work that you're doing, and helping empower individuals is huge in moving the needle.
Yeah, and I think it was like these eye-opening moments, like COVID was hugely eye-opening for a lot of people, like the trust the science crowd. And now I've explained this a lot in the past. There are podcasts of me 8 years ago being like, I know you think I'm crazy. I promise you within a decade, this will be mainstream. And that's where we are right now.
Yeah.
But just helping people see like this is actually a matter of supply and demand. Food companies are not trying to kill you. Food companies are not trying to get you addicted to a way where it catastrophically ends your life or whatever. Yes, they do have food engineers that make sure you want more of their food. Their food is slightly addictive, all these things, right? But ultimately, they want dollars. The reason they make toxic poison is because everyone loves it and they buy it by the cartful, right? The number one purchase on food stamps, responsible for like something like $4 billion annually, is soda, right? So it's like they create the products that people want to buy. So now you have RFK, and Maha comes along and he starts banning food dyes. And now he's talking about seed oils, and the FDA for the first time since 1998 is going to take a look at baby formula and what they can do to make baby formula better. And all of a sudden, like I think Outback Steakhouse, Popeye's Kitchen, all these places are like, yeah, we're going to cook with beef tallow again. Like that. Pepsi has already said they're going to remove all artificial colorings and artificial ingredients from their products within the year 2025. There's another big food company. I wish I could remember the name. Maybe we could find it for like show notes or something. But that was like, yeah, no problem. We'll take all of our artificial ingredients out by May 2025.
That's now.
That's now. So I've been telling people for years, this is economy. This is economics. This is supply and demand. If more people say, I'm not consuming seed oils anymore, you will see more restaurants, more grocery stores carrying things that say seed oil free proudly. So all you have to do is vote with your dollars. This is not a game of like, we have to go fight the evil big food company because they're trying to kill everybody. The big food company has a fiduciary responsibility to increase the value of their shares quarter after quarter after quarter. So if the public comes along and the demand says, we're going to stop buying your products if they're not organic, seed oil free, don't have artificial flavorings and dyes and all these things, the food companies overnight will change their manufacturing to give you what you want so they can keep making billions of dollars. That's all there is to it.
Amen. That's true. It's a good point. It's not as, some parts of it are complex, but it's not as complex as it sometimes can seem.
Same as health and wellness, right? Get sunshine on your skin. Don't eat poison. Eat whole foods. get good sleep and surround yourself with people who love you.
Yeah, it's about that simple.
That's it.
That's great.
Yeah. And I mean, if you think about it, all of those things, like when you ask me my intention for this podcast, is like all of those things are acts of self-love.
Mm-hmm.
So I can call myself a nutritional therapist, an influencer, whatever, but what I really am in my own mind, not a guru, is an architect of freedom. I help people create a life in which they are not trapped by anything, food included.
Mm-hmm. I love that. So in doing that, you've had pretty bonkers transformations with some of your clients.
Yeah.
I think on your website, there was one that was like 50 pounds in 8 weeks, which is
Yep.
pretty wild. Yeah. So outside of what you just said, the big points of like, get good sleep, surround yourself with people that love you, get sunshine, eat whole foods. What types of internal shifts do you work with people on? Because I know a lot of people, I work with people as well, and behavior change can be a really daunting task at times.
Mm-hmm.
Can you get into some of the internal work?
Yeah, the internal work is honestly probably 98% of it. I really think that we live in a world where people are so overwhelmed by the amount of information coming at them that it leads to kind of like analysis paralysis, and they don't know where to go. Or they'll start a diet and they're on it for 10 days, and then they're on social media and someone says, I lost 100 pounds doing keto. And then they're like, oh, well, maybe I should do keto. And then they do keto for 10 days. And then they see someone, I lost 100 pounds doing intermittent fasting. And they're like, well, intermittent fasting, right? And they jump around. I call them tweakers. I have a podcast called Stop Being a Tweaker, right? It's
I like that.
yeah, if you want to come work with me and you're trusting if you're outsourcing your authority to me for some period of time, which I only really want to happen for 90 days, and then I want you to ride off into the sunset. I'll give you all the tools in my toolbox for 90 days, and then you can make your own programs. You can do whatever you want to do going forward.
I love that.
Yeah, but we're ultimately getting you to a place where we are shifting your entire identity into that of an optimally healthy person. So there is a belief in society today that external things will make you feel something internally. It's like, I will love myself when I lose 100 pounds, or I will love myself when I drive a Lambo. Or I will love myself when my business does $1 million, whatever. It's like, no, like the emotional experience that you're looking for has to happen now for you to even get that external thing. So someone who's 300 pounds, they don't become a healthy person when they lose 150 pounds. They become a healthy person today, which is a light switch decision. So I will look at people on camera, on Zoom, whatever, and hey, listen, you are now a healthy person, which means every single decision that you make is done through the lens of a healthy person. And I've given you a simple blueprint, and say it's 5 things per day they need to do. This is how a healthy person lives. This is your blueprint. All you have to do is know that you are a healthy person today, and your body will have no choice over 60, 90, 120 days, but to manifest better health. And that's a loaded word because it's kind of an esoteric word, but that's really what's happening. You're creating your reality.
Yeah.
You are becoming your future self in the present moment, which leads to that change. And the thing that surprises people the most about my programs is the first thing I have everyone do when they sign up is stand in a mirror, look themselves in the eyes, and say, I love you 10 times out loud, and try as hard as you can to mean it. And it is the single thing that I get the most pushback on. I will have someone who's 60 days
They're
in
like,
the
no,
program.
just tell me what to eat.
Exactly. There's 60 days in the program. They've nailed their macros. They're getting sunshine every day. They're going for walks after their meals, like all the things that I teach them to do. And I'm like, cool, check in on mirror work. How's mirror work going? And I give them a weekly progress report. And they're like, yeah, man, I did it this one time and I just like felt really uncomfortable.
It made me uncomfortable. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right. So imagine now that the way your relationship to self is that when you are in a bathroom alone with nobody else around, simply looking at yourself and saying, I love you, makes your face get red. Some women burst into tears. Genuinely.
Oh, I'm sure.
And like, really think about that for a second. Your self-love bar is so low that you are having a visceral nervous system reaction to giving yourself love.
Right.
That's what it's all about. That's the core of the work that I do is self-love. and helping people understand that every time, I don't care what anyone says about this, whatever, these are my opinions. Every time you go get drunk, that's not an act of self-love. Every time you go through the McDonald's drive-through and eat that garbage, that's not an act of self-love. Every time you lay around all day and don't move your body and don't get any sunshine, that's not an act of self-love. We have to understand what is driving human behavior.
Mm-hmm.
So for example, if someone comes to me and they want to lose 100 pounds and they're working a job that they absolutely hate, that has them in rush hour traffic, 90 minutes in the morning and 90 minutes in the evening, they're in a toxic romantic relationship where they're being emotionally abused, their boss treats them poorly at work, and then they're driving home and they swing through the Wendy's drive-through and they get a Frosty. If that bite of Frosty is the best part of your day, we have so much more work to do than macros. We have to help you understand why your self-love and self-worth was so low that you created a life for yourself that you absolutely hate, that is out of alignment with the best version of you. So I'm helping people become their authentic self, right?
Yeah.
And if you're not living in authenticity, you're constantly hiding, bending, and twisting and trying to mold yourself into what other people want you to be, this people pleaser
Yes.
nonsense.
Mm-hmm.
As long as you do that, you will not achieve optimal metabolic health.
Mm-hmm. Drowning in the shoulds.
100%.
Like, well, I can't do something different because I have to.
Mm-hmm.
I need to.
Yep.
But I should. Mm-hmm.
It's exactly that. 100%. And the term can't always means won't, right?
Yeah.
I can't do it. Well, you can. You just won't.
Yeah.
You know?
Mm-hmm.
And then there's things like, in 20 different countries around the world, I have made sure that my food is not cooked in seed oils.
Yeah.
And I will tell that to people and they're like, oh, I was at Applebee's this weekend with my family and like, I can't bother the server like that. I can't just inject, like the whole table's there waiting for me to order. I'm not just going to be like, excuse me, like what's your food cooked in? And I'm like, we have a serious self-worth issue here. Like you are happily consuming poison because you think you might in this tiniest way
inconvenience someone else or make someone else a little uncomfortable.
100%. And not only that, but you're talking about inconveniencing the person that you are giving your money to,
right,
in exchange for the food that you're eating. They technically work for you.
Right.
It's a lot to work on. The self-love is really like if you think of trickle-down economics, right? Like self-love, like trickle-down self-love is everything. And this is why, people come to me, they work with me for 90 days. I have some clients that have been with me for 4 years. The reason for that is they thought they wanted abs. They came to me to get abs. All right, we got you the abs. Now what? Are you happy? Well, I don't know. Oh, okay. So the abs didn't make you happy. What else do you want, right? I have an exercise called Gaining Clarity. If anyone listening to this wants this, just message me, Justin Nault Official on Instagram, and I'll send this to you. Gaining Clarity, I call it the view from 30,000 feet, where I have people audit their entire lives and just get clarity on what you actually want.
Amen.
It's the single most important thing. You need a compass to know where you're going.
Yeah. What is it? A boat with no harbor has no favorable wind? Something to that effect.
Totally. Yeah. Where's it going to go?
Where's it going to go? It's like the tweakers thing that you said with the different diets. Like if you don't know where you're going, you're going to get pulled off course there is no course.
Yes.
There's no sense of direction. And I love what you said about helping people A, identify what they want, and then B, live in authenticity. Because I think our lens is so clouded with what other people want for us or what society has told us we should want. And it's a whole lot more simple than it's made out to be.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of stuff that we don't have to do or have to worry about, or it really isn't all that important.
Not at all. And the other piece of this too is really energy is the root of all this, right? So everything that I do, the entirety of all my protocols are designed to make your body create more ATP so you have more energy. Now, a few examples I tell people are, if we call ATP the cellular currency of the body, ATP is required for every single thing that your body does. If you don't have ATP for milliseconds, you die. That's what cyanide does. Like cyanide poison prevents your mitochondria from creating ATP. So if you don't have ATP, you die. So I try to make you as much ATP as I can. And we know, like in studies, depressed and anxious subjects generate 20% less ATP in their frontal lobe.
Wow. That makes sense, though.
Yeah. Obese subjects, depending on the study, create anywhere from 25 to 50% less ATP in their muscles. Basically, any low energy symptoms you can think of, like I'm cold all the time, my hair is falling out, I have no libido, I'm depressed, like all of those
Yeah.
things are the result of low energy. So the root cause is low energy.
Mm-hmm.
And if you think about what's happening online, right, I'll often have women do like an audit or an exercise of like getting unfollowing anyone who is showing them what body image should be on social media. I actually try to get women to have less than 100 accounts that they're following on social, which is
I like that.
massive. Yeah. The more you are in a state of fight or flight, that kind of parasympathetic, you're in a low energy state, you're chronically stressed, you're chronically anxious, the more social media is going to trigger you. So like
Mm-hmm.
a lot of the fighting we see online, haters and people back and forth, the diet wars and all this stuff, is everyone's just running on stress hormones all the time. It's the same way, like if you think of someone in traffic, like you may have a super cool, calm, collected person who's like super sweet, and then they get cut off in traffic and they're like, fuck you, I'll kill you. You know, like it's because subconsciously, everyone driving knows I am driving a 4,000-pound bullet and the stakes are very high. If someone makes a mistake here, I can crash and I can die. We all know that. We might be listening to a podcast, one arm on the steering wheel, we're chilling, but our nervous system knows in the back of our mind,
That's a
this
really
thing
good
we're
point.
doing is very dangerous.
Uh-huh.
So the reaction that people have in that heightened state is exponentially more intense than if they were cool, calm, collected, right?
Yeah.
Like if someone bumps into you at the grocery store, you're like, oh, excuse me, sorry. But in traffic, it's like, I'll kill you, you know? So
Yeah.
that people are in the I'll kill you state near 100% of the time. And they're
Mm-hmm.
scrolling Instagram. And you have some guy that's like, if you're a carnivore, you're an idiot. If you're a vegan, you're stupid. Intermittent fasting is the only way. Look at my abs. And they're just like trigger, 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 trigger. Like all day long, they're getting triggered
Yeah.
by social media. And I had a client recently. He's been with me for 2 weeks now. And he gets on the call with me and he's like, can I tell you something? I was like, yeah. He's like, man, I'm just so calm. And I was like, tell me more. Like, what do you mean? He's like, before this call, man, I just sat on the couch. I was like, I got a call with Justin in 5 minutes. And I just waited for the call to start. He's like, I wasn't scrolling on my phone. I wasn't like thinking, I got to do this, I got to do that. And he was coming from most of my clients now, I call them recovering keto or recovering carnivore. And
Okay.
I bumped this guy to 250 grams of carbs a day, just from like fruit, raw honey, orange juice, coconut water, whatever. He's like,
Mm-hmm.
man, I feel so calm. He's like, I haven't slept like this in years. Like, I just
Mm-hmm.
feel calm.
Yeah.
He's like, I'm not tired. I don't want to take a nap. I'm just calm. I'm like, there you go, man. That's what we're trying to get people to get them out
I
of fight or
love that.
flight.
Amen. That's so good. What would you say are kind of some like key indicators of, all right, I'm running on low energy? I feel like you just said a couple of them, but I just want to highlight them specifically. So maybe like a woman listening to this that's like, I'm trying to conceive.
Mhm.
I'm worried, like, what if, like, maybe I'm not eating enough. Maybe I'm operating on low energy. What would be some indicators to you that could be like, if you're experiencing these things, it's probably you.
Sure. Yeah. There's symptoms. I talk about like I feel cold all the time, no libido, I don't sleep well, bad digestion, those kinds of things. But then there's
Mm-hmm.
data that you can track. And the
Great.
easiest one is to get online and go to Amazon. Like Vicks is a good brand, like the same company that makes Vapor Rub or whatever. Just get a digital thermometer.
Mm-hmm.
And first thing in the morning, have your and this is also how women who track their cycle naturally will be doing this
Mm-hmm.
every day. They know how to do this, right? But for anyone listening who hasn't done this,
Yeah,
just
yeah.
have it on your nightstand. When you wake up in the morning, don't sit up, don't go to the bathroom, literally just extend your arm over, move as little as possible, grab that thermometer, take a basal body temperature reading first thing in the morning. You want to be at least 97.2, preferably between like 97.6 to 98.2. I have
Mm-hmm.
women come to me that are in the 94s.
Wow.
Like you are a walking corpse. There is not a chance that you're going to do something like conceive naturally, right? So if you're, yeah, I mean, honestly, anything under 97.6, I think is going to be a problem, but anything under 97.2, and you're like, we have significant work to do. And then I have a tracking sheet where I have women do first thing in the morning, then they measure again their body temp 30 minutes after their first meal, and then they measure again in the afternoon. With those
Cool.
3 readings, I can put the puzzle pieces together and show them exactly how their thyroid is working.
Mm-hmm.
And this is actually comes from the work of Broda Barnes way back in the day. And basal body temperature is actually more accurate to track thyroid function than blood work.
Interesting.
Yeah. So that's the easiest way. I mean, those thermometers are like $7. Just get one and track
Mm-hmm.
every day. And I have people track across the 90-day program, and it's like Bitcoin, just up, 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 and we just drive their temperature up. And then resting heart rate is another one. And I know you're big into fitness too. We really have been sold a lie on heart rate. Like I have guys come to me, athletes, they're like, my resting heart rate's in the is 58. I'm like, oh my God. That does not mean you're healthy. It means you're efficient. And efficient is not a good thing. It means your
Hmm.
body is trying to figure out what to do with the tiny amount of energy that you're giving it, right? I'll give you an example. I know this influencer who is very jacked and shredded and looks incredible. Has had to get hair transplant surgery, is dealing with cystic acne, has low libido, often deals with depression and anxiety, is addicted to caffeine, right? All the things that you don't see on social media.
Hmm.
And he posted this thing that was like, there was a study done and it showed that in a calorie deficit, one group that lifted weights 3 times per week maintained more muscle than the group that didn't lift weights. The group that didn't lift weights lost body fat, but also lost more muscle mass. The group that lifted weights 3 times per week lost more body fat, maintained more muscle mass. But the only group that didn't lose muscle mass did resistance training 6 days per week while in a calorie deficit. And the fitness people are like, look at this, amazing.
Yeah.
Fitness, so good for you. Resistance training is great. I'm like, no, no. If the only health goal you have is more muscle, then that is a study that you want to look at and you can emulate that. But understand, your body has one gas tank. So again, the environmental input, the input we're giving the computer, says no matter how little energy I give you, calories, I'm going to continue to lift heavy shit 6 days a week, no matter how you feel.
Yeah.
So the body becomes very efficient and says,
Yes.
okay, well, if you insist, I'll make your biceps bigger, but your hair is going to fall out. I'll make your pecs bigger, but you're going to have erectile dysfunction. I'll make
Hmm.
your glutes bigger, but you're going to have cystic acne. You see what I'm saying? And this is
Absolutely.
the infertile six packs.
Yes. And the body is so malleable and so adaptive. It's going
Yeah.
to adapt to what we do to it, the input.
Yep.
Yeah.
Which
That's
takes me
super
back to
interesting.
nutritional therapy, right? It's epigenetics.
Hmm.
How are we impacting the way our genes express?
Yeah. And it takes me back though too to what you were talking about the like body image expectations that are in the fitness space for women
Mhm.
about like being shredded and having six packs and that this is kind of a celebrated, and not that that's is a problematic thing, like different bodies look different ways, but I think that in our efforts to encourage women to build strength, which
Mhm.
is beautiful and important and positively impactful for quality of life, it often gets interpreted as great, I should then look this certain way.
Mhm.
And it has nothing to do with that. That you can be incredibly strong, functional, and healthy, and not be so lean that you can see your abs. And that can be your like beautifully healthy and like thriving body situation.
Mhm.
That lean does not equal ideal.
No, I totally agree. And I mean, I think we really need to look at numbers of like what's dangerous. It's like women, if you start dipping below 18% body fat, fertility is going to be a struggle for you.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, really, it's important. Now, the other thing to keep in mind is I think there are a lot of women in the world. And again, this is thank you, patriarchy. Like, I even hate to say that in that way because it sounds so like, I don't know. But it's like the vast
I think we
majority.
need more men saying it that way. That's okay.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I try to help people see like the vast majority of miscarriages are due to the quality of the sperm.
Mm-hmm.
And so many women have never heard that. I'm the first person to tell them that. And they're
Yeah.
like, wait, what? And I'm like, yeah. So I've had women who have had like multiple miscarriages and like their man is like drinking beer and eating Doritos and Domino's pizza while she's like, I only eat chicken breasts and broccoli. And she's like suffering in this tremendous way, like trying to figure out this fertility thing and blaming herself. I'm like, no,
Mm-hmm.
no, no. This is a 50-50 situation here. Like an
Yeah.
embryo is a combination of two people and both people's genetics play into this.
Mm-hmm.
So it's critically important, right? And then you have the body stuff. Like I would say this, like guys, your six pack is only impressing other men. Women, your six pack is only impressing other women. I'm
Yeah.
telling you, as a man, I just my personal aesthetic. Like, yes, my partner is very fit, but she does not have shredded six pack abs like a guy on the Mr. Olympia stage. You know what I'm saying? So you have to think about what you're trying to do here. It's like I really think same sex heterosexual people, like men to men and women to women, they drive the body dysmorphia. Like all of the bodybuilder men that I know, that if you polled 1,000 women, is this your ideal body? They would say no. One of the most famous strength coaches in the world right now is that Mike Israetel. And he has like famous social media clips. He's like, if you ask my wife, what do you think of my body? She says, I don't like it. It's not my preference. But he needs it for his own ego for whatever reason. Right. So we're not even doing this again. When we go back to like reproduction, the whole point of the human species is reproduction. So now you have men that are literally crafting their body in a way that repels most of the mates that they're after. And same for women. So we're like, okay, you're driving a physical aesthetic that makes you not even metabolically capable of reproduction. And you're driving a physical aesthetic that is driving away most of the partners that you would want to be with. What are we doing? What has the world come to here?
What an interesting state we find ourselves in.
Totally. It's very
Yeah.
strange.
I feel like you were starting to say, though, something about the patriarchy.
Yeah, I mean that's what it's driven, right? If you think about, for instance, right, my fiance built a 9-figure brand from the ground up, never took outside capital. She's an amazing entrepreneur. She does not do entrepreneurship like I do, right? I am a lunatic. I am very strict and routine and regimented in these things. Like I like a morning routine. She wakes up and is like, what am I going to do today? How do I feel? Do I want to take a meeting today? Hell no. Cancel that one. Get rid of that. I'm going to go sit in the sun.
I like her already.
You see what I'm saying? Right? This is, you have natural cycles. Your hormones change drastically from week to week, a lot more than men do. So what I'm saying about the patriarchy is the entirety of the patriarchy, what we have been sold as equality is not. It is maleness. The more male you can be, the more we value you. So yes, you should be, you want to be a partner at a law firm and show up every day the same way, drill, blah, 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 right? I saw a video from a very famous female influencer who's super shredded with 6-pack abs that was like, it is nonsense that you should train in accordance with your cycle. You're losing lifting gains and you're losing strength gains by not training during your period. But I'm like, okay, so ignore your body and all your natural intuitions and just get to the gym like David Goggins and get that shit done, right? This is what I mean by the patriarchy. Everything is judged against maleness. So we don't honor, like, Megan, my partner, I call her my oracle. Because if I'm stuck on something, my masculine brain, I will have my blinders on and I will try to kick down a brick wall for a fucking month. Like, no. I want it to be this way. And I am the Hulk. I will smash through this brick wall. She comes along with her feminine intuition, her magic, and she's like, hey, baby, like 2 feet to the left, there's an open door. Why are you trying to smash through that wall? Right? But we don't value that the same way. We value regimented, strict routine. Everything is business, right? And I feel the same way in like fitness, in martial arts, in everything. It's just like, how much can you compete with the men is basically how you are judged on your value and what you bring to the table. Or like an example of this is I do masculinity coaching with men, and a lot of these men come to me and it's like, my partner and I, we split the bills 50-50. We split restaurant bills 50-50. Everything's 50-50. What does she bring to the table? And I'm like, what she brings to the table is she makes life in her stomach, you fucking idiot. That's what she brings to the table. She brings to the table something that you could never, ever, ever do. Now, don't get me wrong. I love a boss babe. My partner is fantastic, right? Killer entrepreneur. I met her. She was a keynote speaker on a private island full of digital e-commerce entrepreneurs. I was like, this is incredible. Like, it's so attractive to me. But she did it in a way where she outmenned the men with her feminine magic. It was a very like magical kind of intuitive thing that she does, right? So it's like, we don't respect the inherently feminine traits, qualities, and gifts the same way that we do the men ones. So that's like the issue that I have if we talk about the patriarchy, is like, we need to stop judging based on how man-like you can be. You see what I mean?
Absolutely. I think that's beautiful. And I think that in some of the pushback against it, there's sort of this narrative that's like, we need to now prioritize like the feminine and make everything like that.
Exactly. Right.
And what we really need is just this like creating space for the polarity of both.
100%. If you
Yeah,
remember earlier.
between man and woman, but also within each individual, because it's, I mean, that's a whole other discussion. But
Yeah,
that, yeah,
totally. Within,
yeah,
I mean, that's the last 12 years of my journey has really been a journey of self-love. And the
yeah.
most impactful thing I had to do was get in touch with my feminine. I
Hmm.
had to learn to cry. I had to learn to
Yeah.
dance. I had to learn to ecstatic dance. I had to learn, I'm feeling bad today. I'm staying in bed. I'm feeling great today. I want to go dance. I don't want to work right now. You know what I mean? Like I had to learn
Yeah.
the kind of fluidity and that chaotic kind of thing that happens within us. And the
Hmm.
same way, like you're talking about, right? Earlier, we said there is uh, morbid obesity, which is like on one side of the pendulum of like an
Hmm.
unnatural human body. The other side is like infertile six packs, is the other side of the pendulum. What is the middle ground? The middle ground is when we're integrating both of those things, right? So it's like we have some amount of body fat on our person, but our hormones are super dialed and we can reproduce. We are physically fit. I can train jujitsu. I can lift heavy weights. That's great. Also, I know when to rest and recover and get under red light and sleep a few extra hours, right? It's both of the things. And in every unique individual, I need to understand my feminine intuition, my masculine intuition, and I need to know how those things dance with one another. And that makes me the best entrepreneur. It makes me the best romantic partner. It makes me the best son, the best brother, the best friend, integrating
Hmm.
those parts of self. You know, I joke with men when I'm doing masculinity coaching in a room full of men. I'll be like, hey, listen, if I'm having a hard day, I will call up a male friend, go hang out with him, and openly cry in front of him. And I'm having a real time. I'm really hard time. Can you please give me a hug? I will lay my head on a man's shoulder and cry when I'm feeling bad. I can also kill most men with my bare hands. So you know, it's like this understanding. It was like this. Oh, if a man's too feminine, all of a sudden he can't be masculine in the way he's supposed to be. It's like no, it's all of the above. It's all
Hmm.
of the above.
Exactly. And it goes the other direction too, like in this push for like toward the feminine, there's also kind of been this other lean of men getting in touch with their feminine to the degree that they no longer value the other, of the power, of the ability to be violent
Yes.
when needed, when necessary. Um, Interesting.
Yeah.
Fun.
Well, and think about it, right? Like,
One of my favorite little rabbit holes to go down, really.
yeah, yeah. I mean, think about like when I use this term infertile six packs, right? It's like a lot of the guys that I know that are that way are like incredibly dangerous men. Like they're very well trained martial artists. They're trained in weapons training. They're very good entrepreneurs. They're good at making money, like hunting, gathering, providing protection. Like they're fantastic at those things. I am absolutely not suggesting that we get rid of those things,
Mm-mm.
but we
Oh
have
no.
to find the balance, right? Because it's like now you have all those things that like an ideal in a heterosexual relationship, right? Like you have this ideal masculine that can like protect, provide, care for all of these things,
Mm-hmm.
but literally can't reproduce. So it's like, well, what is that? What does that exist for? Other than now you're just playing the video game of like more money, more stuff, more material, more success, more fame, more whatever, but you're
Mm-hmm.
never actually building the legacy. You see what I mean? So it's like we have to
Absolutely.
value all the above. And that's
Mm-hmm.
what I try to help people do in the coaching that I do.
Yeah, that's great. That's so beautiful. So now with the Clovis babies, is from my understanding, helping people with fertility has never really been like the intentional goal. It's kind of been a byproduct of the work that you do. Is that right?
Yep. Yeah, I didn't change anything. Like
Yeah.
I looked at it through the lens of like if someone came to me that was breastfeeding, was pregnant or was trying to become pregnant, I wouldn't put them in a calorie deficit.
Mm-hmm.
That was really what it started with for me. I was like, I'm just not going to put them in a calorie deficit and we're going to
Yeah.
see what happens, right? Like breastfeeding, making a child, like these are very metabolically expensive.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so really there's no special trick. You know, it's like when someone asks me about fertility, I really think that they're looking for some kind of secret sauce where I'm like, I have them intermittent fast for 13.25 hours and then they start their day with 12 ounces of coconut water and fulvic acid from the Amazon junk. You know what I mean? Like I feel like they're
Yeah.
like waiting for some kind of specific
Yeah.
thing that is like the
It's the
fertility
super
diet.
secret hack. Yeah.
Exactly. No, it's like this is a human diet, like
Right.
a optimal human diet that gives you enough energy. The body's going to do what it wants to do naturally.
Mm-hmm. Amazing. So now do you intentionally work with couples who are trying to conceive now
Yes. When they come to me, yes, yeah.
when they come to
If
you?
they come to me looking for that, I don't like you know my social media. I'm not on social media. Like if you're struggling to have a baby, come to me. You know,
Yeah.
really, I think just people come
I'm
to
just
me.
going to take that clip though, and
Yeah,
I'm going to put it on social media.
Do
what
it.
you just said.
100%.
Yeah.
Bring it in, you know? It's great for me because I don't have to change anything, you know? And honestly, like I always say that like if you really want to look at it from a calories perspective, if you're trying to get pregnant, you are pregnant or you're breastfeeding, like you're essentially a bodybuilder. You're building new tissue. You are in an anabolic state where you are building new tissue. New tissue is very expensive, right?
Mm-hmm.
You wouldn't, if some kid came to you, wanted you to train him, and he's like, I want to put on 10 pounds of muscle. You're not going to be like, great, 1,600 calories a day. Of course not. You're going to put him in a calorie surplus so he can build new muscle that
Yeah.
supports the training that he's doing. The only difference with women is like you're supporting the tissue, the body that is growing inside of you, or the body that you would like to have grow inside of you.
Yeah.
Either way, it's an anabolic state where you are building new tissue.
Mm-hmm. And we need energy to do that. We need
100%.
energy in excess.
A lot of it. Excess.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
We
I
can't we
love
can't
that
be
you made me say
wondering
it.
where it's going to come from.
Yes. Excess is perfect. Like, yes. Amen. Thank you for saying that. Like, you need excess. An
Mm-hmm.
additional human life coming into your body is excess. You require excess. Now,
Mm-hmm.
the other thing that's interesting that I see happen is the trend of I need to get back to my pre-baby weight.
Yeah, let's talk about that.
And what you see here is I'll be like as sensitive as possible with this, but like you see women that basically the baby comes out and they're like right back to a calorie deficit, or they're breastfeeding with a calorie deficit. And now they're training and they're doing a calorie deficit and they're breastfeeding. And then you have things like, oh, I don't know what's happening. Like my production is down. My milk production's down. It's like, okay, you have the gas tank, right? You're pulling from one gas tank. You need excess. Now, the
Mm-hmm.
other thing that I don't think women realize um, is the way that the body changes when it doesn't have enough, when there is not excess, when there's constant restriction and constant scarcity. Their body is not going to do what they think it's going to do. So they will have the baby and then they're like going to chronic restriction, chronic starvation. And then you have these women that are like a year later, 2 years later, like they want plastic surgery. Like they want a tummy tuck, they want a boob job, they want all these other, what has happened to my body? Like I'm just like, I look deflated and I look like what's happening. Like they were in such a basically like laser focused mindset of just make me smaller, just get me skinnier, that they did it in a ridiculously unhealthy way that damaged their tissue literally. Like they didn't have enough collagen for the changes that are happening in their breasts or the changes that are happening in the skin on their stomach or stretch marks or all these things. It's like, no, you need excess for your body to heal. You need excess for your body to fluctuate the way that it would naturally through a pregnancy. And when you try to force it through restriction, suffering, sacrifice, scarcity, you are not going to end up with the body aesthetic that you were hoping for. Trust me.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a fun game when you take that path.
Amen. And you're also not going to enjoy that process as you're moving through life. A lot of the work that I do with my postpartum women that I work with is helping them like ease back into it and like dial it down, right? Like
Yeah.
enjoy the doing of things that they enjoy doing and figure out like what is in alignment for them now. Like you don't need to get back to doing what you were doing before necessarily if it no longer serves you.
Sure.
You could. You could if you love it and you enjoy it. Let's move that direction and build toward that. But A, there's no rush. We have plenty of time.
Mm-hmm.
And B, it could look different now. It could be that you enjoy different things. Postpartum life is totally different after you have a baby.
Yeah.
So it is reasonable that your movement and the way that you pursue fitness is different.
Yeah. I love that. There's a real social media today. There is a real sense of urgency.
Oh my gosh, so much urgency.
Yeah. Yeah.
We got plenty of time, baby.
Totally. I said, oh, I'm like, man, it's like we really live in a world of just like 7-day juice cleanse, 14-day detox, 21-day boot camp. And it's like, it's really problematic. And I have to really settle people. Sometimes I'll do breath work with them to like settle themselves because I'll have people that come to me that have been obese for 20 years. And they come to me and they're like, no, but I know, but like how much weight can I lose like in 30 days? Like how much I have a beach vacation coming up. Like how much weight can I lose in there? I'm like, listen, you have told me you're 45 years old and you told me that you have been obese since you were 14. What is the rush right now? Really settle yourself for a minute. If you want to do this properly and you want to get the weight off and you want it to stay off long term, remember 95% of all low calorie dieters gain the weight back, all the weight back, and sometimes more within 5 years. If you want to do this properly, just take a breath. 30 days is we're not going to solve 30 years of obesity in 30 days. We're just not going to do it. And if we did do it, I would be treating you like an MMA fighter. I'd have you wearing a garbage bag in a sauna, shadow boxing, and we'd be just pumping weight off you, and you'd gain it all back 14 days later when you start drinking water again, right? It's like, what are we doing here? The sense of urgency is really, really problematic.
Yeah, absolutely. Agreed. Yeah, we want this to be a sustainable life that you can enjoy for the rest of your life. Yeah. This isn't a short window of suffering to accomplish a goal that then you're just gonna zip back from.
100%.
We're in it for the long haul.
This is one of my favorite things. One of my favorite quotes of all time comes from my fiance.
Oh.
And she loves philosophy. We both like love depth psychology, huge fans of Carl Jung and Alan Watts and all that. Like we've been down all the rabbit holes.
Heard of the Red Book?
Yeah,
you know the Red Book then.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, okay, go on.
I trained a custom GPT on the Red Book actually. Which is
Did really you?
Fun.
Okay.
Yeah. Actually, but yeah, so she just has this thing where she's like, philosophy is really simple. I'm like, tell me more. She's like, are you having a good time?
Amen.
That's it. Like that's it. I mean, if you were gonna get a tattoo, you can get Live Clovis for sure. That's a good tattoo, right? But like, are you having a good time? Like, and this is where you see people just like suffering through fitness that they don't like, suffering through diets that they don't like, suffering in relationships they don't like, suffering in careers that they don't like, with this idea of fucking delayed gratification that someday it's going to get better. No. Are you having a good time? Because if you're not, we should change the focus. We should move the direction that you're going in. 100%.
Yeah. And we've been sold this lie too, that instant gratification is the good time. Like, you know what actually is a good time? Having enough sleep that you feel well rested and fueling your body so you feel really fucking good. Like, that's actually a good time. We've just been lied to about what a good time is.
Exactly. Yeah, it's like I talk about like drinking. It's like the most viral videos I ever do are all around like, hey, alcohol is most definitely harming your fat loss goal, right?
Yeah.
And these videos do millions and millions and millions of views just because people have such a hard time giving up alcohol. And I try to help them see like, no, if you are a regular alcohol user, you're either numbing or you're trying to lower inhibitions because you don't feel comfortable in social settings because you're insecure, or you're spending your time with people in social settings that you don't actually like that much.
You don't like.
Yeah. Exactly. You know what I mean? So it's like what we've been sold as like a good time is really like self-betrayal.
Yeah. It is so interesting. And what you were talking about earlier with self-love, there's been kind of this spin on self-love being indulgences, which in times it can, like context matters, obviously, but the whole like, oh, I deserve it.
Right.
Yeah, like you were saying, like the Frosty at the end of this day that's just jam-packed with all of this, I mean, in my interpretation, self-betrayal throughout the day.
Yep.
And then, if that is the highlight of your day, is the first bite of the Frosty, then we have some other things to look at.
Totally. Yeah. And the idea of deserving is interesting too, right? Like when people say like, I deserve this, it's usually because they did something that they didn't like or something that was really harmful or painful, right? You see this a lot with overweight people when they first start doing something like CrossFit, right? It's like, they don't actually love it. They don't love it yet. Right. They may learn to love it and they may grow to love it when they learn to do it sustainably over time.
Yeah.
But it's a lot of like, I just did something so hard. Get me a beer and a pizza. Or like, I remember the brand Deadlifts and Donuts. Right. I'm just like, oh, the way that we drive this into people's brains of just like, you did something hard, poison yourself. Yeah. It doesn't make any sense. And I'll tell people, I'm like, listen, like at the end of a work week, on Friday, like every other week that you've worked some 40 to 60 hour a week job that you hate and you want to go get blitzed at a happy hour because you think you deserve it. That's different than like if you're, at Thanksgiving with your loved ones that you see once a year and you all really love each other and you crack open a bottle of red wine and you're all sipping on wine and you're laughing and you're telling stories about the year that you had.
Yeah.
Remember last year when Danny did this and blah, 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 blah. Like that's like lowering. I have goosebumps talking about it.
I know. Like it almost made me it made me kind of cry a little bit.
Yeah. Now talk about that, right? Like we know all the
it's beautiful.
Yeah. All the blue zones, right? Those people consume alcohol regularly, but their dinner is like 3 hours long and it's with their friends and they walked 6 miles that day calmly. They didn't go kill themselves on a treadmill, right? It's like, it's what is the intention behind the thing? I fundamentally believe that in quantum physics, this whole crazy simulation that we live in, right, is like your intentionality behind the glass of wine you're about to drink changes how it operates in your physiology. I fully believe that.
You're right. It totally does.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, if I'm catching up with old friends I haven't seen in a year, and we're sharing a couple bottles of wine and we're having some laughs, and like, yeah, I might wake up with a headache tomorrow, but damn, that was worth it, because that was a lot of love in that room.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Something to the concept of saying grace before meals too, eh?
Yeah, totally. I love that idea. It's great.
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting. Well, this has been fantastic. I appreciate you sharing so much. I knew this conversation was going to be killer, and it was.
I felt the same way.
I throughout the interviews, I jot down timestamps of like, oh, this could be like, I want to come back to this one. This could be a great clip, and I wrote down so many little timestamps.
Nice. I love
Very
that.
exciting. Before we wrap up, though, I just want to give you an opportunity to speak directly to an individual who might be listening to this podcast who's trying to conceive, having a hard time. What would you want to say to that person, man or woman?
You are not broken. Not even close. Your body is adapting to the inputs it's being given. There's nothing wrong with you. You didn't do anything wrong. You don't have anything to feel guilty about. You have nothing to feel shame for. All we have to do is tweak the inputs. And those inputs look a lot like abundance and self-love.
Let's go. Okay, we're just gonna jot down that timestamp really fast. Bitchin'. Okay, so good. All right. I always end my interviews with 2 fun questions that I like to ask everyone.
Cool.
So, Justin, do you have a mantra? And if so, what is it?
I do. All right, let's see. I've never shared this publicly, but let's share it.
Exciting.
It's going to tell you about my beliefs of reality very quickly, but it's short enough. If I'm having a hard time, I say this. I start every day with this. I say this to myself in my mind every night before I go to bed. And that is, I know that I am living in a simulation. I don't have to fear anything or have anxiety. I am limitless. I can create anything that I want. Nothing from the past can touch or harm me. I am the very best version of myself right now.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
I love it. My version of that is the stakes are low, baby. Low stakes.
Dang, I love that.
Thanks. I also the other way that I look at that one is Meow Wolf. Sometimes I'll just look. Are you familiar with Meow Wolf?
Yeah.
So Meow Wolf is an immersive art experience. Yep. So sometimes I'm just like, it's like a pretty intense Meow Wolf going on. 100%. It makes me a little bit uncomfortable, but it's good.
Yeah, it's the best.
So Meow Wolf and the stakes are low. When I'm doing something a little risky, like skiing, usually is when that one comes up. The stakes are low, and I just have to remind myself, like, stakes are low. Yeah. It's the worst that could happen.
That's a great affirmation.
Die.
I'd love that.
I mean, that could happen.
Sure. You wouldn't know if it did.
I wouldn't know if it did. Higher stakes for my mom right now. Sorry, Mom.
Totally.
We went in a helicopter when I was in Hawaii last week. We went on a helicopter ride. It's my first time in a helicopter.
Whoa.
I was nervous about that. And I, was kind of just reflecting on it. And my mom, before we went on, she was like, how are you feeling about it? And I was like, I'm good now. I've got my head wrapped around it. And what I came down to is like, anytime I'm worried I might die, I just am mostly like worried for you, like I don't want that for you. Or like I don't want to die either, but like I worry mostly about my mom's experience of my death. I don't want that at all,
Yeah.
And so I was like, but you're with me. So if this helicopter goes down, rock and roll.
Yeah. Mom will be fine too, Whatever comes next.
Me and Mom, we're going out together if this helicopter goes down.
That's great.
Beautiful. I love that. That's super good.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. That's great.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. I'm so glad I gave you an opportunity to share something you haven't shared before.
Yeah, that's fun.
Okay, last thing is, could you tell a story about a time in your life or an experience that you had that was particularly empowering for you?
Yeah. I mean, I walked away from 95% of my income when I left the music industry.
Mm.
I was making less money per month than I had made since I was 17 years old,
Hell
in
yeah.
my early 30s. And I was like,
Mm-hmm.
start over, let's go. And, to speak to what we talked about today is I always called the music industry golden handcuffs.
Mm-hmm.
I did very well. By the time I was in my late 20s, like I'd had a reality TV show, I owned a couple of houses, like my days were my own. I had a lot of free time. Like it was just, and I was like, this is actively harming me and my health. I'm going to bed at 6 o'clock in the morning. I'm on stage every night. There's a lot of alcohol. And as my personal development grew and I started expanding my consciousness a bit, I was like, this is no longer serving me and I have to leave. And it doesn't matter what the cost is. I can't keep saying I should, or I have to, like you said, right? To quote you.
Mm-hmm.
And that was it. I was out.
Mm-hmm. Wow,
Yeah.
that's beautiful. What was the initial experience of getting to the like just past the threshold of that decision?
Yeah. I mean, it was, I say this to people like you choose when you hit rock bottom, right? We hear stories of rock bottom of like, oh, this guy was a drinker and he like lost his family and ended up living under a bridge with a heroin needle in his arm and he hit rock bottom. It's like, no, rock bottom can be the first time that you are drunk and you snap at your wife and treat her poorly and you wake up the next day feeling guilt. That can be your rock bottom. You didn't have to lose the house and the kids and the job and the thing, right? Like you decide your rock bottom. And I always say that I stayed in the music industry 5 years too long.
Mm-hmm.
I knew. I was like, oh my word, this is like crushing me. And it was golden handcuffs. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know how to get out of it. It was the only thing. I started playing piano for people when I was 8 years old, man. Like I didn't know what to do. Who am
Yeah.
I? Who am I without this thing? This is all my
Yeah.
external validation. This is everything.
Right. So much of your identity.
Yeah, yeah. And I stayed too long, but I didn't because it was perfect and it brought me here and it's
Yeah.
led me to my businesses and my fiance and all these things. Right. It's like, I wouldn't have the things that I have today if I hadn't done it that way. Um, but to answer your question, by year 5 of 5 years of staying too long, it was a 15-year career I had. I mean, I was very negative. And people ask me today, like, do you still play music? And like, not really. Like, I can't like I walk right past my piano. I walk right past my guitar. Like something that I once loved and was passionate about was really kind of stripped from me in those choices
Mm-hmm.
that I made. So, I mean, the longer you know something is out of alignment for you and you continue to stay, the more damage you're going to do. And then you're going to have to recover from that damage, right? I'm happy where I'm at. I love my life. I was really thinking to myself the other day that like I'm going to play piano and sing more because my daughter comes into this world in 2 months. Whew. Yeah, and I want her to
Incredible.
experience music. I want her to hear me sing. I want her to hear me play and those kinds of things, right? So I have
What a
like a
beautiful
new,
reason to start playing again.
yeah, I have a new incentive to do that. That's not based on
Yeah.
like external validation, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it was it was painful, and I left the industry and then I was living on like really credit cards. Like my monthly expenses were not covered, so
Yeah.
it was a very kind of scary time. And I think I could have made the transition much, much easier had I just been like, oh yeah, this is out of alignment. Let me take some steps. I could have spent 5 years taking steps
And building a
rather.
new foundation for something else
Exactly. Rather
instead
than
of
just
being
like
like, you know what? I just need to burn this to the ground.
100%. I dropped a nuclear warhead on everything. It's like, let's
That's how
go.
I tend to do things too.
Yeah. And I'm like,
Yeah,
cool, here we are. But it was very, very, very challenging. Yeah.
I'm sure.
Hmm.
Yeah, incredible. I saw this thing that was like when your baby is born, you should choose a song to sing to them as they fall asleep.
Oh, cool.
So it's like always the same song, and then it's also really helpful for their sleep habit.
Yeah,
'Cause
yeah.
when they hear that song, they associate it with sleeping.
Sure.
So just thought I'd throw that one out for you
I
guys.
love
You
that.
choose
That's
a
great.
song.
Yeah.
Yeah, I also before I moved out here, I lived with a couple of friends, and they now have two kiddos, but at the time they just had one. And the song that she would sing him at bedtime is like so nostalgic for me. I like hear it, and I'm just like, it warms my heart so much. So they have their bedtime song, but
That's
yeah,
beautiful.
Oh,
think I know what it's going to
love
be.
them.
I'm going to think about that a bit. That's great.
I know. It's probably for you. I feel like it's probably going to be something from Miley Cyrus.
That was not the first thing that came to mind, but party in the USA maybe.
Yeah, probably Party in the USA. It'd be a
Yeah.
good choice. All right, killer. Well, for our listeners, how can people find you if they're like, wanna tune into this dude?
Sure. Yeah. On all socials, it is just Justin Nault official. My last name is Nault. Just search at Justin Nault official and it'll come up. Instagram's probably the best place to get in like immediate touch with me through DMs. But yeah, you can find me on every platform.
Beautiful. And I will put that in the show notes for our listeners.
Cool.
All right. Well, we'll wrap it up. This has been so good. Thank you so much, Justin. This has been rad.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the FemStrong podcast. If you enjoyed today's discussion and found it helpful, we'd love it if you'd consider sending it to someone you love. It just might make their life a little better too. We also love hearing from you. If you could take a moment to leave us a review on your favorite podcast platform, it really helps us reach more listeners just like you. I know your time is valuable and it's another thing to do, but really, it helps a lot. Also, don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode. Missing an episode would be a travesty. So, subscribe, follow, you know the drill. Thank you again for being here. Your support means the world and helps us continue to bring valuable content to our kick-ass community. All right, FemStrong crew. Until next time, keep kicking ass, love your people well, and remember to give yourself grace too. Much love to you all. Farewell, my friends. Farewell, my friends makes it sound like we're all about to die. I don't know why I decided that was my outro. I used to just say adios. All right. Much love to you all. Adios.